Welcome to Global Risk Community Chat. Today, our guest is Einat Segal. So I'm very happy to have you here today at our podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Likewise. So before we get into our topic, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I work as the cybersecurity operations manager at Clarion Housing Group. I started my career in 2006 in military cyber intelligence, and then I moved on to be a information security consultant, and now I'm in my current position.
Sounds great. So with that being said, then let's get into the topic. So, Einat, what would you like to share with us today?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the risk of ransomware that organizations face today, and the steps that need to be taken towards the road towards resiliency. The main points for this is that ransomware is a evolving threat to organizations, and that security needs to be a business priority. And it is a business issue, and it's not just an IT issue.
Yeah. Sounds good. So then let's jump right into it. So what would be then some key things that, the business can look into?
So, first of all, understand what ransomware is. Ransomware is a method that cyber criminals use to extort money from organizations. And it usually is the last stage of an attack. So some things happen that create a lot of damage before the ransomware is executed. The first is that somebody manages to get in as unauthorized access into your systems. Uh, Usually, in most cases today, they will exfiltrate data. The more data that they will particularly search for data that will cause harm to your employees and your customers. And then once they are satisfied with their work, they will unleash the ransomware, which will encrypt the systems. And they will also attempt to delete the backups so that you have a few things that, a few impacts to this occurrence. First, your data is stolen and will be published on the dark web, which is a secret part of the internet that criminals use. Secondly, you will have an operational impact, so you won't have your systems, and you may also lose your backups, so you won't be able to restore those systems back from backup. Now, the ransomware in general is not something that destroys organizations. So most organizations survive after a ransomware attack and become wiser. But there are some organizations that this means the end for them. So this is a very critical risk. The thing about this risk is that the threat actors are very motivated and they will stop at nothing to get their reward. Finally, there is the fact that paying them is not something that will help you in most cases, because the fact remains that they have exfiltrated your systems and they have stolen your data. And you might not get your data back the way it was, and they might still publish it on the dark web because you cannot trust criminals. Now, it is a scary phenomenon, and it is something that organizations need to prepare against and to prevent. What some of the things that you can do are to practice the basics of IT. So the basics are hygiene. So know your systems and inventory them, account for them, know your software, and keep everything up to date. Still, cyber resiliency is like trying to keep fit. And being afraid of ransomware is like being worried about having a heart failure. But still, heart failures happen to the healthiest people. So it can't be prevented completely, but the risk can be greatly reduced from practicing continue in having healthy systems and making security a business issue that is a concern for the people at the top, cascading down. Um, and yeah, that's in a nutshell uh, ransomware and cyber resiliency.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. I also really enjoyed that you made it, you explained it in a way as if it's also our body. It's very similar in many senses from what I hear. So I think that this kind of outlook can also help a lot of businesses think about it in a different way. So with that being said, I am curious about something else that is, so to our audience that are listening this and they would like to, start right away with this, what would be the first thing as a takeaway that you can share with them? They can start implementing right away. They go to work tomorrow, they just work on it or can work on it.
So first of all, it needs to be something that is a concern for board level. So the board needs to, this working on it needs to come from the board. But in the more practical sense, nothing is, you don't have to make up the wheel. So there are frameworks like the CIS controls, which basically, if you follow those, and there are instructions of how to, and you implement those, then you are already taking the first step towards cyber resiliency. But you also have to remember that this needs to be resourced and budgeted, and you need to understand, you need to tabletop what the phenomenon of of ransomware will look like, and and then you have to understand how much that would cost your business in terms of if the risk would be realized, what the impact would be. And out of that, calculate how much you can give to cyber to prevent that. Because if it's not budgeted, then you won't have the people to do it.
Makes sense. Then it means our audience who are not bored essentially in the business should be also communicating to their board all these needs, these things that so that board can also take action essentially from what I'm hearing.
If it's not a concern for the board, from the middle, it won't work to prevent it. It needs to be a collective business concern.
Yeah, makes sense. So is there anything else you like to add on? Anything else you like to share?
Cyber resiliency is a journey. So it's like if you aren't fit and you want to become fit, you have to start working on it every single day. And you can't do one thing and say, okay, I exercised once, now I'm healthy. You have to continuously eat well. You have to continuously go to the gym, choose to take the stairs instead of the lift, and so on and so forth. And it has to be your way of life, because otherwise, you will never reach the destination of being healthy, and you won't be able to maintain that.
Thank you for sharing that as well. Once again, thank you also for making it really simplified, just doing it as if it's our own body and fitness and keeping it up shape. So that I think really helps out. So with that being said, we ran out of our time. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your insight and talking about this topic that is, I think, not talked as often. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me over to talk about this.
Yes, of course. Have a lovely day.
You too.